Hello, people. T. Stalin back with you. Thanks for joining me. Sorry about that little hiccup. Today I just want to carry on with our little physical modelling patch, take it a little bit further and look at a couple of concepts, namely decoupled sequencing, which I think DivKid Ben coined the term, which is something I've been doing with sequencing in modular environments for really quite some time, but I've never actually thought to term it in such a way which makes a lot of sense and is really, I think it's quite a helpful term to actually have. So we're going to look at that, and I'm also going to look at constructing a little shift register sort of patch inside of the grid here. Then hopefully it's helpful to some people out there to make use of it, because it's quite a cool little tool to have. So we'll look at building that, but firstly we'll look at this idea of decoupled sequencing. So as you can tell, we're back in the grid here, and I've looked into this data tab here for these sequencer modules, and you'll notice there's several types of sequences we can deal with. I'm going to drop in a gates module and a pitches module. We'll just work with these for now. You can also use steps and probabilities also, but we won't look at those in this case. We'll just deal with these two, and the idea is really, if you think about it like your typical MIDI sequencing, I guess like basic step sequencing, you'll find that your gates and your pitches, or your pitch information, is all tied up in one it's all tied up together in one sort of sequence. So you can't segregate them like you can in a modular environment like we have in the grid here. So the idea is to segregate them as such. So basically we already have that here with these two separate modules, but by default, as you can see, they're synced together. And I guess the idea with the decoupled sequencing is to just separate them even further by having differences in the sequence length and the timing as such. And this just allows you to really push a step sequence further, and you can get a lot more out of a single sequence without having to resequence everything. And I'll show you what I mean. But firstly, there's a bit of a caveat here working with the grid as opposed to other modular environments or modular hardware. In that, with the grid, we have this concept of phase, and this is where all our where the modules derive all their timing information from inside the grid. It's this phase precord, which is like a default timing signal for these modules to operate. But we can just deactivate that with these little buttons in the corner, these precord buttons. So as you can see there, the pitches is just running, the gates deactivated. So just bear that in mind. You don't really need to worry about this concept of phase timing with other environments. But I'll just explain a little bit further what that means. Is that if we change the step length inside of one of these modules in the grid, it doesn't change the timing, so it's gonna still run, say we're at 7 steps now, it's still gonna travel across these number of steps at the same rate of time as it would take to travel at 8, which is different to other modular environments. Typically you would, if you were to drop that back to 7, these would loop back around and then be offset, so the gates would be occurring on different steps. So what we can do to address this is look at these phase modules inside of the grid here. You have this phase tab with all these handy tools to deal with the phase timing and being able to manipulate all that. So we'll just deactivate the gates module for now, and we'll bring in a scaler, and the scaler is also going to need a phase input. So this is just it's just an input for the phase timing that we had before. So there's no pre-chord on this scaler module, so that just allows us to run this scaler at the same phase timing as the ones with the pre-chord. So we'll just connect that, but it's now operating at this ratio of 2:1, so it's going to run at twice the speed as the pitches sequencer. I'm just going to connect these so we can hear some stuff. So that's going to go to the first and this second envelope. We'll connect the pitches to the cone filter. And you might notice I'll just bump that frequency up a little bit. Notice here, because those are already decoupled, the way the cone filter is receiving the pitch information regardless of the gate's timing. So you can hear the pitches change over the duration of the envelopes being triggered by the gates. So this is something else that we'll probably want to alleviate. So let's just move that for now. Yeah, so to alleviate that, you're going to need to use a sample and hold module, which you can find in the level tab for some strange reason. I don't know why, but it's in the levels tab. And we're just going to feed these two into the sample and hold. The gates will go to the trigger input, and the pitches will go to the top input. And now we just reconnect them. So the output of the sample and hold will go back to the cone filter, and then we just reconnect the gates to the envelope. So now you can hear that the pitches held over the duration of the envelope. Let's change that because it's, I don't know. I don't know why they've put such a hard pitch sequence in for like default. By default, it's just it baffles me. Anyway, we'll put something that sounds a little bit more bearable, I suppose. That'll do for now. It's pretty rough. Nothing fancy. And now we'll look at some of these timing differentiations. We'll push this concept of decoupling a bit further. So you can slow this down by just changing the ratio. So this is just allowing us to really just change what the sequence we're getting without even having to change the sequence. Change the gates. Yeah, instead of using this scaler, we could also just drop in another phasing module. This can just give it its own independent phase timing. So you need to run pretty high ratio once again. You can use any of these modules to manipulate this signal as well. You can run it backwards, for instance. It's not going to make much difference being offset every second step, but yeah, you get the idea. Just, you dive into that a bit further. So the other thing I guess I want to show in this video is how you can build a simple shift register. If you're not sure what that is, it's basically you take a sample and hold. And it's like a whole series of sample and holds that you can use it, and they behave like a bucket brigade or a pass the parcel type concept. So it's pretty easy to make, but we're going to build a few extra sound sources to work with. So we'll just copy these down a few times, make 4. We'll make a 4-stage shift register. Oh, sorry. Now we'll make sure these are all connected. That's right. So we'll take our filter inputs. And then we'll need a mixer. Mix tab. Yeah, and then we'll just connect the envelopes to the mixer. And the gates, we're going to need, well actually we'll leave the gates for now because, well no, actually we'll connect them because that will save us doing it after. I'm starting to see chords pop up everywhere here, but it doesn't matter. We're going to concentrate on this little area here, so we'll take this sample and hold, and we're going to need a series, so we'll make it 4-stage, which means we need 4 of these. And to make the timing of this behave in the correct way, we need to ensure that they're not receiving the triggers at exactly the same moment, or they're going to, effectively they're all going to hold the same value, which is not what we want. We want them to pass the values on in a series. So this bottom sample and hold, the last in the chain, wants to receive its gate signal first, so that it passes its value out to the sound source before it gets its next value, and so on, like up the chain to the first one. The first one in the chain wants to have the longest amount of delay, so that it holds its value while the others can pass it on. And I hope that makes sense, but effectively we take this output to the next input and so on, like a chain. And then we also take the output to these sound sources. So let's go to the frequency inputs of each comb, and now we need a delay to set these timings right. So we're going to drop in one. We don't need one for the actual bottom sample and hold, just need to put 3 in this case. And timing only needs to be very, very short, in milliseconds, so we need at least 1 millisecond difference from the from the previous sample and hold. So this would be 2.02, I should say, and this one will be 0.03. And that just allows us to ensure that these are not receiving their gates at the exact same time. So connect the gates to the delays, and then delays to the trigger inputs. Like so, and then we need a gate actually for the bottom one. So now that should effectively work like a shift register. Connect that. So fix that. Now put these all back on, and I'll bring them in one by one so you can hear the offset. So it should be like a 1-stage offset per voice. Effectively, you get this kind of arabesque type sequence going on, where it sounds, like a chord progression, or it's a very interesting way of sequencing. So that about wraps it up for what I wanted to cover, and I hope it's been helpful to some others out there. If you've got comments, queries, questions and all that stuff, feel free to drop a line in the comments. Hit the like and bell if you like what I've done. I would appreciate people watching and all that. I hope you've enjoyed it, and thanks again. I'll catch you in another video soon. See ya.